person, and one of the CPAC reps at Brookline High School. And as part of Brookline's Autism Awareness and Acceptance Day, the CPAC has organized an evening with Susan Senator. And Susan will be discussing her insights and creative strategies for connecting and communicating with autistic people to promote their social, economic, and political participation in society. So we'll start the evening with an interview and followed by questions. And then we also have books available. Brookline Booksmith will be selling copies, which Susan will be able to sign for you. And our interviewer for tonight is Beth Hoffman-Kramer. And for those of you who don't know her, she is the parent of 2 students at Brookline High School, and is also the co-founder of the Coalition of Brookline Autism Parents. So please, everybody, thank Beth.
Oh, I have not done anything yet.
Yes. And as I'm sure everybody here knows, Susan Senator is a nationally known author, blogger, journalist, and activist who lives in Brookline. And she's published op-ed pieces, commentaries, articles, and essays since 1997 on parenting and autism. She's published in places such as the New York Times, Washington Post, the Boston Globe, Exceptional Parent Magazine, Family Fun, Education Week, and Psychology Today. She's also appeared as a guest on the Today Show, ABC News, PBS, NPR, and CNN. And I think most recently was for the election. In last November, she appeared on CNN. She's the author of 4 books, Making Peace with Autism, The Autism Survival Guide, Autism Adulthood, and a novel, Dirt. And her books are drawn from her personal experiences as a mom with a child with autism. She's also a former member of the Brookline School Committee, that was from 2000 to 2006.
Yeah.
And a former chair of the Brookline CPAC. Her experiences have run the gamut, an entire spectrum's worth of changes and viewpoint, and her views have helped bridge the divides within the autism community and have earned her the respect of parents, professionals, and autistic self-advocates such as John Elder Robinson, who wrote the foreword to your latest book, and to Will Landon. So, without further ado, please welcome Susan Senator.
If I'm really, is this okay? I'm like, I've never done this before. So excited. This is such a treat for me, an honor, really. And I really envision this as like a fireside chat with Susan. Like, you know, Michelle Obama, she has, like, Maisie and I got to see Michelle Becoming, the tour, and she sat with, you know, wherever it was. An NPR journalist, thank you. And they just had like a conversation, and I love that format. So, whoa, sorry. I don't know if I should ditch the mic, let me know. So anyway, so it's my honor to be sitting here with Susan, and I have some questions to ask her, just so you guys can get to know her and her story. But then afterwards, I'm sure you all came for different reasons, but if you have any questions about being a parent of a child on the spectrum, transition to adulthood, many topics that Susan can speak on. She's like, and she has been such a resource for me over the years, because I have 2 children on this autism spectrum, so she's been like a fairy godmother to me, of autism to me in my life. So anyway, without further ado, I'm going to start my questions. Hi, Susan.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. So can you just tell us about your family, about the boys, your kind of like all the constellation?
The constellation. So Nat is my oldest, he's 29, and has autism, and a lot of challenges in terms of communication and sensory overload, and behavior because of those other 2 things. And right now he's living at home. He's 29. He's living at home, and we're looking for a new housing situation for him. It's right now in this part in time. It's kind of tough. I wanted to bring him, but it wasn't a good moment. So unfortunately, he can't be here. My other two sons, Max is 27, and he's a cameraman and living in Brooklyn, and the hippest person on earth. And my youngest, Ben, is at Savannah College of Art and Design. He's 21, and also, actually, he's even hipper. They're very sweet boys, and I miss them. So I don't know what else you want to know.
Yes.
That's the constellation.
Yeah.
Well, I have a husband too that I love. Yeah, he's a software guy, and he works in Cambridge. He's really my other 3/4. He's much more responsible for the good things that have happened in our family life than I am, actually. He's the one who's home right now, helping Nat, so that kind of is evidence right there.
Can everyone hear okay? I'm in the back. We're good. So maybe we can start at the beginning, or how you, if that's okay.
Yeah.
About when Nat was little, kind of that experience of being diagnosed and kind of your early days as an autism mom. Is that
Okay, yeah. The early days, so this was, he's born in '89, and I right away felt like something was not what I expected about Nat, and I don't like to say I felt like something was wrong, but that was how I felt all the time back then, even though he was also, and he's a delight, and, laughed a lot, laughs now. His middle name is Isaac, which means laughter in Hebrew. And sometimes my husband says, "Why did we name him Isaac?" It's like his fake laughter can be a real problem, but it's also sometimes kind of funny. But so he presented very differently from what I expected, and but being that this was like the late '80s, nobody was thinking about autism at the time. So I don't know how that sounds to you, but it was like a different age. So it's like when I think of the refrigerator mother age, that was as different as, Nat's early years were to now. So I didn't know where to go for help or anything like that. And it wasn't until my second child, Max, was born 2 years later that I felt like, wow, this is really different. And all children are different, but Max was what I had expected. There was an instant connection. I've come to realize that Nat and I have a really good connection. It's just like I've had to really kind of figure out what it looks like and feels like. It's there, but it's taken me a longer time to feel it. So I guess at around 2 3/4, we took him to get an evaluation. I had to really persuade the pediatrician. I finally went in with a list of things developmental milestones that he hadn't made, and convinced her. So by the time he was 3, we had a diagnosis of pervasive developmental disorder with autistic-like symptoms. And the doctor said it's under the autism umbrella. Nobody said spectrum. There wasn't even spectrum at that point. When we went to Margaret Bowman, who you probably know. I don't know, maybe you don't. She's an icon in the field. She's pretty old now. But she's the one who turned to us and said, "Oh, this is autism." And I was like, "Okay, thanks. Now I know." And then it was a matter of finding out what to do, which was a long time. So Brookline didn't have programs in those days, so they sent him to the Newton Brookline Collaborative, which I don't think exists anymore. And it was just an inclusion kind of classroom. And, you know, I was happy that he was going somewhere, but I also could tell he wasn't progressing. And that's kind of the first experience I've had with kind of like that feeling of panic that we're losing time. And I wanted to just get him out of there like right away. And I feel like I kind of became that kind of person around that time where I just would sum something up very quickly, you know, that where Nat was concerned, and make a decision and just like pull him out. And in some ways that's great. In other ways, you know, it's not, because he has a hard time with transitions. But I have a hard time with programs that aren't helping him. So even with his living situations as an adult, I've like acted quickly, and you know, I think that I think we have to do that, you know, and it's not because there's that window of development from 0 to 5, you know, and then the brain just hardens up. That's not true. I just think, you know, the more you can put your kid on a developmental path that helps him get along in the world, you know, the sooner you can, the better, obviously. So I don't know how much into this I should go, but
so just in terms of so at that age and at that time, it was very different. It was a very different autism landscape because there wasn't as much knowledge. So what did, like, in terms of like the different therapies you tried or advice that you got, I know maybe you could just talk a little about like what things you guys did and what you thought was helpful, or what key things you learned along the way about
yeah, I mean, I think
interventions.
that the first thing we did was we realized that Nat really responded well to being read to. So my husband and I invented this thing that turns out to be social stories, but we didn't know about that. I don't even know if they've been invented at that point, but I'm not going to say I invented the social story, but I invented the Nat book. And we just basically cut up pictures of family members and pasted them, or scotch taped them into this, you know, little booklet about what to expect from our Thanksgiving. And he loves to be read to, so we read the story to him about what would happen to Nat. And he memorized it, and he was great at Thanksgiving. So this was age 3, soon after the diagnosis, and it was like our first strategy, the first thing that ever like worked, where we thought we actually made some kind of connection about Nat and with Nat, and we took it and we ran with it, you know, and I still have like 20 Nat books about all different stuff that we had to go and face all together, you know, and it was always something like, you know, Nat's first day of school, Nat's baby brother, Nat moves, Nat makes a friend. They didn't all work. But, you know, we tried, and it was fun for me because I'm a writer, and you know, at the time I was just writing fiction. I was writing novels. And so this was a new thing, a new outlet, and it kind of like took off. And my mother-in-law saw one of the booklets, and she said, why don't you just write about this booklet that you've made and send it to a magazine? I'm sure other parents would want to know. This is really cool. And so I did, and it got published. And then I realized, wow, maybe I have something to offer. You know, at least there was that. But that particular experience kind of told my husband and me that we could make up our own approaches, you know, because there wasn't anything that we could do that we knew about. You know, there was no parent training in this program he was in. So we could make up our own stuff. And if it worked, and by worked I mean if he responded and was made happy and relaxed by the thing, then that's something that works. And we could do that. And that was a really great feeling to realize that we were pioneers. As scary as it was, you know, lonely, I didn't know anyone who had autism. You know, so it was scary and lonely, but at the same time, there was this empowerment. And I still feel like that's true, and that's something that caregivers and everyone can embrace and, you know, try to make up what works for them. You know, I mean, there are definite techniques. And we started to, when he was finally sent to the May Center, which is a behavioral school, and, you know, I saw some good results there too, in terms of Nat being able to tolerate sitting in a classroom and doing really basic academic stuff. So it's not that I was sold on ABA, on the behavioral approach, but I loved the way the school treated him. And, you know, ironically, because it's behaviorism, but they were so humane and they loved him. So he stayed there for a while. And we started to get that training, but, you know, that's when I started to feel like, wow, this really is not it for us, you know, because we were teaching Nat how to play. You know, put the boy in the car, push the car, go to the store, you know, and he could do all that, but he didn't enjoy it. He didn't, you know, so I was like, how can I get him to understand the value of people, other people? I just didn't know how are you supposed to make someone happy with people? So that was a quest for a while, and we did eventually, through Special Olympics, we kind of discovered that that was the way he was going to learn. He was going to just experience other people doing what he was doing, the fun of the physical activity of gymnastics. This very insistent young man who just wanted to hug Nat, you know, and Nat, he was another autistic teen. This was when they were 15, and they just hugged during the whole practice. And his mom and I were like, wow, this is great. This is a friendship. And that was the first friend.
So beautiful. Love that. I can keep I have my questions, but I just had a question for you guys. Are in terms of who's in the audience, just so we know. If you feel comfortable, are there parents of kids on the spectrum here? Just a lot of parents. Professionals work with kids. Excellent. Interested parties or other, interested people. Fans of Susan. Yes.
Wonderful neighbors.
Yes. So, I just wanted to ask that so Susan can kind of direct, we can direct kind of what you talk about. So, anyway, but, so in terms of Nat's profile, I wonder if we could sort of just talk about, like, what things were easy for him, what things are more challenging for him. Have they changed over time? Have they stayed the same?
Okay.
That's a lot in question.
Yeah.
So like people can kind of get a sense of what
what he's like. So his spirit animal would be wild pony. That's what I think. He's even got like a long face, kind of like me. And I think of him as like comes out of the forest every now and then for the interaction and for fun with other people, and then he retreats into his thing. I hope that doesn't sound infantilizing. It's just a mom's view, and well, it's my husband's view too. So he's like that, and really fast and active and thin and tall. The only person in the world who didn't gain weight on Risperdal. So he's delightful, and when he's connecting with you, it's just like the best feeling in the world. But he doesn't talk much. I mean, his talk is mostly self-talk. It's actually it's words, but they're scrunched up or stretched out so that people can't tell what he's saying. And I think he wants it that way. I think it's like it's his own power that he gets to just talk the way he does and not have you interact with him. I just think that's what he wants, but I can figure out what the words are, and when I guess, he gets mad, so then I know I'm right. So it's a lot of that kind of thing where he's like, he'll go into another room when we're in the living room, he'll go in the other room, and he doesn't want us in his face. So most of the stuff that he did, like academically, he was in the pragmatics category. I don't know if that means anything. Not college bound, but it was a hard way to be. It was hard for me that was the way it was. I don't think it mattered to Nat, although now he's in a Curry College art class, so he is going to college. That's awesome. Yeah, that's pretty great. So he's had challenges with communication and with sensory overload, anxiety, and then behavior that comes from trying to control that. He's always trying to organize himself, and I think that using his calendar and his schedule and talking about it a lot is like really fun for him. I feel like it's not only that he perseverates on his calendar, I think he really enjoys hearing about it. It's like his novel. He looks at his calendar and just finds all kinds of meaning and pleasure in looking at his days. So that's what he's like. I don't know if that's it's hard to kind of figure out what he's like. So right now, though, he's in a very difficult phase. His anxiety is back, and we're trying to figure it out. And this is kind of like where we've always been, kind of know that something's up with him, but we don't know where to go. And my mother or someone will always say, just ask his doctor. And I feel like the doctor asks me, what doctor do you mean? So they all have their own little thing that they can help you with. So if you're thinking seizures, okay, let's try Margaret Bowman. I'm thinking it's medication, we're going to go to Dr. Henry. So it's very imperfect, and so I feel like that's, to me, the biggest source of pain with autism is that we don't have the understanding of how to help symptoms, and how to help people be the best they can be, and that kind of thing. The acceptance movement is lovely. It's exactly what we need to get there. But we're not there yet, so there's a lot of, I still feel like I'm doing a lot on my own.
I can just have popcorn and just listen to you all day. I love it.
We're all shaking our heads.
Yes, we all agree.
That's good. I don't always know.
There's something that Susan Wright is a writer. She's written all these wonderful books that are in the back, and she has an excellent blog. I love reading anything you write. But one of the things I really helps me, or that I, as a mom, kids on the spectrum, I was wondering if you could talk about what it's like going out with Nat and your experiences out in the world with him, and how, because I really really resonated for me the things that you've written about, what it's like to be out, not just in your house, but when you take him into the world and what that's like.
I won't lie, it's a lot of work. It feels like work to me, and which has nothing to do with how much I love him and how proud of him I am. It's a lot of work, and I get afraid that he might have a meltdown, somehow, which he did on Sunday. A terrible thing happened in a restaurant, and police were called, and we weren't there. It was a social group thing, so it's like every parent's biggest fear. My son hurt someone, he hurt himself, the police, all that, you can imagine. So that kind of stuff has, I'm sure, traumatized him, but I know it's traumatized me, so that I have to feel in a very strong mood if I'm going to go out with him, so or it has to be on his calendar, I guess. And, like if he has said, you know, Starbucks for a treat, I have to do that. And so just like him, if I'm prepared in advance, I can do it. But then there are these wonderful days where I feel kind of like, I can do that, and it all works out. And I think it's because on those days he senses my calm, and really, I think he really appreciates that. I wish I could be that way more often. So we work it like that. But my husband does most of the outside stuff, I have to say. He takes him to the Special Olympics practices, takes him on walks all over Brookline and Boston on the weekends. But we try to do things all together, also like going to movies lately. That's been something we can do. So, every time we find something that we can do that's actually kind of fun and not too scary for me, I feel like, wow, this is great. And it's always been that way for him, and for me with him, that it's that corny thing where these small victories, that they're huge. I can go out with my son. He actually orders in Starbucks. That's always something, like I have to stand back and like let that happen. And I'd say like 90% of the time the cashier will look at me after he says very clearly what he wants. The cashier looks at me to verify it, and I feel like, how can I get that to stop? I even stand back a little. I don't know, but I must be doing something that's like, I'm his mother. So I don't know about that, but there are those times, and both things have happened in the Starbucks at Brookline Village, where we've had the barista just talk to him, and they communicate, and it's just amazing, And I actually wrote about it for the Washington Post. It was such a great thing when that happened, to just have him, be a guy ordering his cookie, I think what I started to think is, to not get so mad at other people for not getting it, because like really, he kind of bounds up to the counter, and he's full of all this energy that other people kind of keep more under control. So he's just, like this live wire guy, big guy. So, maybe a person who doesn't know who he is like, what's going on? And then if he says cha chip cookie, they're not sure. But to me, it's like, he did it. He did it. Don't look at me.
Right, totally. I love that. I'm a fangirl, Susan. I'm going to circle back to one of these excellent questions prepared by wonderful Andrea. Because since there's so many parents in the audience, I know as a parent, you get all kinds of advice about different interventions, different therapies you should try, and especially a lot of our kids that have communication difficulties and speech difficulties and social language. I know it must be, I don't know if you could talk about a few of the things you've tried, what things do you think have helped him the most? Because I know that you get the prescription for ABA or floor time or, biomed, or there's like a million different things, and you read about them all and you try and figure out what to do. And I was wondering if you could speak about that whole process.
Yeah, that's a big one, because I'm not that good at like presenting an organized method in my house, in my own home. And I can't tell you how many times I've been given a Velcro board with all the little choices, and that just looks at me, and it's like he's saying to me, "Come on, Mom, this is not you." And I really parent by instinct and very organically. So that's how these ideas just kind of float over to me. Like the Nat book was really just kind of born of desperation. There it was, you know. I have been, trained to do the ABA thing, but I can't. I guess there's been other things, people, like friends, back in, I guess in the 90s, were starting to do the gluten-free, casein-free diet. And I tried that. I tried it for a week, you know. I mean, this is me. I'm not good at trying these things. I really admire the parents who just clear out their kitchen and stick with it, and their kid improves in terms of anxiety or speech. And this is where I feel like, I can't beat myself up because I couldn't do it. He just doesn't, he won't eat that stuff. And deep in my heart, I didn't believe it applied to him. And eventually took him to Dr. Bowie. I guess some of you might know him. He's a, pediatric GI with Harvard or wherever. And we ran all those tests, endoscopy, everything, to see, if Nat was having gut issues that we couldn't discover on our own. And he wasn't. There was nothing like that, so I had to conclude that this is not, okay, so I did everything for that particular approach. I will say I've done everything, so there. Check that one off. Check that one off, that's not us. So again, the organic thing is like, took him to Special Olympics and just kind of tried to wait out his anxiety with all of the noise. And we set small goals for ourselves and for him, which is like, the first year, we're just going to tolerate the gym. The second year, he's going to started to, pay attention when people called his name on the team. The third year, he could make baskets. So each year there was a new skill. We're still working on catch because it's like the whole team. They all put up their arms, but they don't make the connection that this is for catching. So everybody just, when their defense needs work. But I love them. I love them for that. So that was the way he kind of learned how to be with other people successfully and on a team and that kind of thing. And it was enjoyable for us, so we got this great feedback. All of our friends are Special Olympics parents. We don't have any other social life other than through Nat. And that's also, I thank God for that, because we're just hermits.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess other things that we've tried, when he was younger, we were really in a panic trying to find a cure. So back then there was something called secretin, which is some kind of hormone there was some progress with people being injected with it or something, and they were starting to talk and everything. And by the time I got Nat on a waiting list, it had been debunked. So I started to get kind of cynical about the links people would send me. And I think by now people know not to send me stuff and not to give me advice. Have you tried? Like, please don't say those words to me. It's so not about trying anymore. It's really about finding him activities he likes and finding him people to hang out with, people who get it, and keeping him active and employed. He does volunteer work now, but he used to have a job. So it's adult things now.
I remember the pizza.
Right,
pizza?
he worked for Papagino's when he was a teenager, and he was making boxes, and that was his first paying job. And they gave him an orange soda. That's what he wanted. He didn't want the paycheck. He didn't, that didn't make a difference. But he had like piles of boxes. He was prolific. Because he didn't realize that you should bring them to another place. And, these employers don't realize the pieces they have to explain. I think that people with autism can do like almost anything, but you need the correct explanation. So I feel like he was good at that. They promoted him. He started delivering those things, the flyers you put on doorknobs. You know, so don't throw those away. Those are great. And you know, and then as an adult, after 22, he had a job doing shopping carts at a Shaw's, and that was good for a while. So it's just another one of these, what I think of as organic, practical, real life stuff is what we do with him. You know, like jobs, chores, kind of putting responsibilities on him and like support him, see what happens, back off maybe, try it again in a few years, like that.
I'm sure you all have, like I could sit here and ask a lot of questions, but Andrea, I don't know, I can open the floor for questions or I can keep asking questions. I'm sure you guys.
Wow. Yeah, if you want to open it up,
Yeah, I have my list. I have a million.
I've lost track of time. So.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you guys think? I can keep going, or if people want to have it be more of a Q&A, we can do that.
You can keep going, but you have to leave some space for us.
Okay.
We've been waiting for this for a long time.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyway, I have my list.
Let's see
So
what we
maybe
got.
like I'll do 10 more minutes of Q&A and then we can do questions. What do you think?
Sure.
I wondered if you could talk about the whole like behavior as communication and
Oh
like
yeah.
that's a really good question, and because I think that is really interesting and such an important point, like and especially with Nat.
Yeah. I think we discovered that his behaviors, like the annoying ones, let's say, were because he was trying to communicate to us, and you know, duh. But I just feel like we were always in this vacuum, just my husband and me, just trying to figure it out. I guess I don't know why, but I know that at age 13 he was having a behavior of laughing, his fake laughter, and he had also had that at age 7. So it comes and goes. He's back at it now. But it can be so, it's like so in your face and annoying, and so obviously fake that it actually sometimes backfires on him and makes me laugh. And so the first time that happened, he stopped and he just looked at me, and it was really a cool moment because I was like, oh, you know, he was trying to get me mad. He was trying, and you know, now we're connected. So, you know, I kind of learned from that the behaviors mean something. And then as I got older, you know, I started to meet self-advocates and learn a lot about the behavior as communication. Oh, okay, hi.
Behavior is communication.
Yeah.
That he's not like he's stimming or he's
Right, the stimming, I mean, I met someone through Autism Self-Advocacy Network years ago, and I was just talking to them, and suddenly they started doing this, and it was just like lightning striking, because I had thought that this person was just, you know, talking to me, maybe, you know, I didn't know if they were on the spectrum or not, and then there's this thing happening that's just like what Nat does, and I made that connection that, you know, wow, there really is a spectrum, and you know, I don't know if there's a purpose, but it's real, it's something, and it's important to this person, so it's important to Nat. You know, and during the school years, we've been told to try to interrupt it and substitute something. You know, the same thing with his self-talk. I was told to interrupt and give him something to say. So I had to come up with communication for me and for him. You know. So I knew that was wrong. The same thing with the laughter. We were told to give him cards that he could alphabetize to channel him from the laughing. And again, that was like, this is why I'm always skeptical of the advice I get, because I feel like you have to be able to laugh. This isn't going to help. So instead, I mean, now I know what to do. I have to like kind of act like I'm enjoying his laughter, and it just gets him, it gets him back down. So that's behavior as communication, but there's also, recently we kind of made an inroad into Facebook with him. I don't know where I got the idea. I guess it's that he was looking over my shoulder at photos in Facebook, and suddenly I thought, hey, do you want to type something? Because he can type. And you know, we did try facilitative communication, but that didn't work for Nat, and I'm not going to trash FC, but I just know that it wasn't Nat's thing. But he can type, and we're still working on that. It works very well because he can just message a person who's online and hopefully get a response. And so it gives him time to compose a response. I've learned that he really needs a lot of time and a lot of quiet. So I'm just watching him while he's doing this and he's thinking, and finally he'll say, play basketball or whatever. And it's so great. And when I've been told by people that when Nat writes to them, they're just so thrilled, it makes their day. And it's true, it's really amazing to see what he's thinking about. And lately I noticed, I started to think that, and I noticed that he types hi Nat a lot of the time. And I used to say, well Nat, that's not, you should say hi to who this person is. You know, I was trying to teach him, and I realized I'm doing it again. I'm like just kind of putting myself on him, and like I should figure out why he's doing that. And it's just like, lately I'm thinking maybe, you know, this is what he wants the person to say to him. He's like doing that, a little bit of echolalia. Or it's what he's thinking about. What do I care if it doesn't make sense? You know, half of my posts on Facebook don't make sense.
No, that's a really good point. And I think as moms, that is something that we do, is like we want to, even if it's hard, like want to impose yourself on what you would do. You want them to figure it out, but it's a mom thing. My daughter's sitting in the front row, she can attest to that. So yeah, I just was wondering if you just, again, I'm going to go off my little script for a moment. Just your life as a mom, like, is there any like core pieces of advice or things you would give to young moms or younger moms, or I don't even know, are moms just beginning this journey or in the school age? Like, do you have any, like, not advice, but like things that work for you when you felt down or discouraged or whatever? Any thoughts?
Okay.
I know you have like 3 books worth of
No, but
advice,
I know
but-
sometimes I think, don't read my book. No, I mean, because I find that I feel like I've made a lot of mistakes, and sometimes I feel like, you know, this is a lesson in what not to do, you know, but I think that's what it's about, though. Parenting is trial and error, you know, and not beating yourself up and that kind of thing, and taking a break and you know, that's the advice that's sort of helped me, not too much. People say you should take time for yourself so that you'll be a better mother for him. And I feel like, no, it's actually take time for yourself, because your life counts too. Just that, plain and simple. And I think that finding a hobby, as silly as it sounds, you know, when I wrote the survival guide, I really wanted to find out from other autism parents, what do you do to be happy given this challenge? And, you know, I wanted to kind of actually like plumb, you know, the depths of what is happiness for people. And, you know, so for some people, it was just a matter of having a support network, having a girlfriend to call. I mean, you know, a woman having a girlfriend to call. Glass of wine, that kind of thing. But also, you know, some talks I've given, I've asked people, you know, what's missing in your life? What's fun? What is fun that you want to do that you're not doing? And figure out what that is and why aren't you doing it? And one dad said, well, I'd really like to go camping, but I can't go camping. And so we thought about it, we tried to unpack it, you know, right there in the room, like what about camping exactly? What is it you miss? And he said, kind of the campfire, I guess. And so we were like, build a fire pit in your yard, you know, sleep in a tent in the yard. You know, you're not going to get the full camping thing, but you're going to get a little of it, and that's good. And, you know, I dance. People probably know that I do that. And that's my escape. I think you need escapes. And not because, you know, this is such a bad life. I think everyone does need escapes. I think one of the, even today I was thinking, what I want, especially the new parents to know, is that you think that this is like the worst thing in the world, and everyone around you maybe has a better life, because this challenge is just so huge and lifelong. But the fact is, it's only the first of those kind of things. I don't mean to be depressing, but I think, you know, actually life is really like that things happen with people. And once you're a parent, your life as you knew it before is over. You have to be there for that person, for those people, and you have to find a way to love it. So I think that it's really a matter of not thinking, you know, poor me. It's really, life is red in tooth and claw. I think that was Tennyson who said that, and that's true. Just because we're here in lovely Brookline, we have such a good life here. You know, great schools, green space, political people who think beautiful things. You know, all kinds of stuff. You know, it's like you think then that you're going to have a life that's flawless. You know, we're raised to feel like we can kind of accomplish everything and anything, and this is the first time it happens. You know, a parent will realize, oh, what? How did this happen? But it's going to keep happening, and we have to deal with that. And it doesn't mean life is bad. It just means it's complicated.
Amen. That was so good. I was wondering also, you want to take that? I'm sorry, you're like, take that one.
I'm fine. Yeah. No.
I was wondering if you could talk about just the people with autism who you have made connections with and friendships with through, you know, that you met through your life with Nat and going to different conferences, and because I see on your, like, on Susan's blog and on her Facebook, a lot of people with, you know, autistic self-advocates and other people, like, they reach out to you and they talk to you. Can you talk about what they've contributed to your view?
The autistic people in my life are the ones who talk to me the most on Facebook and during the day. You know, I get that's in a way they are my social life. My online social life is autistic people who just keep going with what they're interested in and want to know what I think, and it's like sometimes I don't like it, it's tiring, and so I don't answer then, and sometimes we'll just go, you know, big long conversation. It's because they're just people. I mean, it's like, you know, that's been like the thing I kind of like enjoy again and again, like, because I find a lot of people annoying, and I feel like so autistic people are no exception. And that, I like that. It's kind of my experience of
We're all
human
humans.
nature, yeah. But there's also all these amazing things that I've learned and that I get to hear and I get to talk about. A friend of mine who's always talking about media and culture and sends me links about politics, and he's the one that keeps me updated, And so, I guess my experiences have been mostly good. Lately I've been locking horns with people on Twitter, self-advocates who are, they're right in that autistic people should be the ones with their own voices. In fact, it shouldn't be me here. It should be an autistic person telling you about, so I think that's very valid. But then again, I think, well, I wrote these books, I'm a parent, people want to hear from a parent too. And you get into stuff and it's very black and white. And I think to myself, well, because it's the spectrum, autism spectrum, people, like Nat likes everything very black and white. Gray areas are hard to find. And so it's kind of like, sometimes I feel really bad, because I feel like, I'm your ally here. Why are you being so mean? And then I realize because things are changing. The paradigm is changing, and pretty soon I'm going to be out of a job. That's okay, I'll just sit in the audience then. But it's really cool to me how it's changing. And that, autistics have not only a seat at the table, they have the table. And we are going to have to learn from them. I'm saying them, but half the time I wonder if I'm on the spectrum. You're nodding, yeah, you probably are.
The more I read,
So I think, the mind is really broad and human nature is very varied, and that's mostly a good thing.
I'm going to ask you one last question, and then I think we should open the floor because it's 8-ish. Andrea, I don't know if you agree with that approach. Yes. Maybe I'll ask you 2 questions. I know you were on CNN, I think, about the voting, about how Nat voted in the election. Could you just tell us a little story about that whole experience, or a little piece of?
Yeah, that was just an interview. That was right around the time of the elections. But the voting, I had done a voting booklet for Nat. Before that story, I had actually done this little booklet, like a Nat book, about voting right before the presidential election. And I will be honest, I feel like parents guide their children in how to vote, and that's what I did. I was very black and white about the 2 parties and the candidates, and I think that a lot of people vote that way. My other sons ask me, who are you voting for, and blah, 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 So it's a very, to me, it was a very natural kind of thing to do, is to, but then to sort of go over the actual mechanics of voting. So first we just talked about who are the people, how's it going to look on the ballot, here's what a ballot looks like. We practice filling in those circles, because you can only fill in one, because when we went to the primary, he was just bubbling them all in. And, God bless those people in West Roxbury where he was voting. They just gave us, a new form each time. It's not, and he didn't vote a million times, I'm saying. They could see what was going on, and they wanted him to vote. And that's been our experience too, is so many people are so thrilled that he's there, exercising his right as an American citizen. And, so we've had nothing but good experiences at the polls. But mostly what he needed for that experience of voting was really just for us to repeat a few times. here's what you're going to see, here's where you go, this is the ballot, you know, and let's practice this, and then we give the, you know, I had a picture of the machine where you put the ballot, and so it was all very familiar to him. And I was nervous because I didn't know what the other people would treat us like, and you know, but like I said, it all went great.
It was so, when I read all about that, I was like, oh my God, that's so awesome. It's just.
I mean, I was in a sweat, but it,
Yeah.
it happened, so there, that's,
So great.
that counts.
When the next election comes, maybe you could do a little roadshow to people who might need help learning that process. 'Cause
Yeah.
I think that's so great. This is my last question before I open it up is I wondered if you could talk about Max and Ben and about like how do they feel, how like their childhood and growing up with Nat, like if someone asked them about having a brother with autism, like what would they say about it?
Yeah, it's not great, right?
The sibling experience.
Because we never wanted to force anything. We didn't want to force a relationship. So, you know, my boys they're all just islands themselves. I mean, we might all be on the spectrum in my family. So there's not a lot of, you know, there wasn't a lot of trying to figure out how can I reach my brother. It was more like, why is he doing this? And, you know, Mom, he's getting aggressive, you know, like that kind of thing. There was a lot of panic, especially for my youngest, who's 8 years younger. So he's been through a lot, and it's only recently that he has started to really think about, you know, now that he's in Savannah, he's far away, he has his place and his people, and now he can really think about what his childhood was like and what autism meant. And so he's making sense of that in every way that he can. He has friends who have siblings, and I guess they have a lot of stories to tell. And I'm really pleased that he actually told me that he wants to deal with it. And I was like, great, anything I can do to help. But, you know, like, I'm sorry if I did something wrong. No, I didn't do that, but I just feel like, you know, it's good for him to be finally dealing with it. And Max, who's in the middle, he's always been easier going than Ben, so he kind of naturally took over this position of being like almost like the big brother. But on my way over here, I was thinking, that was probably not good either, you know, because he's the younger brother, he's the middle brother. But you know, you can't get it right as a parent, you just can't get it right. So, like now I'm in that position, I would say I did my best, and I hate that. That's not enough, good enough. But the two of them are starting to, I mean, because they're young men, they don't like talk about their feelings a lot. But they're starting to ask me things here and there, and one of these days we're going to have to talk with them about, you know, what role they might want to take when we're no longer here or able, and that's just really hard and unpleasant, but you know, we'll tackle it pretty soon.
You've been so, I could sit here all night and eat my popcorn and continue to ask questions, but maybe we can open up the floor and then Susan can sign some books. Please feel free to ask. It's been so wonderful. I just think you're amazing. And you've done an amazing job. Like you're, not only have you parented 3 boys and, you know, been a writer and been so productive as a writer, but I think you've given so much wisdom and so much to the community. You're one of my sheroes.
Thanks.
Since you said community, I want to ask a question about community. So my name is Lisa, and I'm a parent here in Brookline. I also am on faculty at Emerson College. I've been working as a professional, but I'm really invested and interested in sort of the work we've been doing in the community And when my son started kindergarten in Brookline Public Schools, I felt like talking about autism was the white elephant in the room. And Alessandra knows because we were on a committee together. But I want to hear your perspective, because I know you're on school board, of how do we make it not the white elephant in the room? How do we make talking about autism to all the children in the school and all the parents in the school something that's more mainstream or part of a truly inclusive environment? Because I have a vision of Brookline Public Schools being a lot more inclusive than what they are. And I'd love to hear you sort of speak to what you think we might do to help support that.
I mean, I think that Brookline's made a lot of progress since our time, because there are programs now, and there weren't. So that was the reason I ran for school committee, was because I thought this is supposed to be a great school system, and my son is being sent out 30 minutes away, and then the town people are complaining about how much special ed costs. Something's wrong here. So, I think first having the programs, so starting with the schools, and we have that now. And then there's just the whole, for me, I think that these kind of movements, the movement of inclusion, I think these movements take time. And we're going to, institute a lot of anti-bullying and raising awareness kind of stuff, and you need to do that. But there's also something organic that's got to take place, just with the repetition and the familiarity. So I think that just like with our guys, I think that the familiarity and exposure, and I say to people, and I say to myself, get your guys out there, because really society has to start to have a clue, and I think they will. It's going to take longer than we'd all like. In terms of like curriculum, is that what you're?
No. I think you answered it nicely, but you're well. I'd love to hear it.
No, I mean,
it wasn't going so micro as curriculum.
I mean, my thing was always to sort of explain that, because people will wonder. But I do know, and I tried to influence the Understanding Disabilities program way back when, but they said that there'd be people who'd be upset by it. They might be thinking, maybe I'm autistic and that might be upsetting, and that was a whole new, I didn't think about that, so I couldn't push that.
We're pushing it now. We're writing it right now.
That's great.
Next year.
I mean, that's where I am. I think you should talk about it. I don't think it shouldn't be a big deal, so we'll see.
Yeah, that's great. Questions?
Who's over here?
Oh,
Alessandra.
hi, I'm Sandra. I'm the mom of a 13-year-old child that is kind of like your dad when he was 15. So I feel totally mirrored in your life, and I consider you a guide for anything. So thank you for being there. As a young parent, I felt kind of alone, and actually being also international parent, the more alone because I was not connected by family or by friendships to anybody. But I feel very soon I was able to find a little bit of solace in support group, which were actually some of the women that we see around here, and I see some of the parents. And I was wondering, and we could continue to kind of create this cocoon of like support for the parents, new and old, because I'm an old parent with a guy, but still. And I was wondering, what was your experience as a parent? And I understand it was very different from what I may have experienced. In terms of support from other families that were sharing your same path or similar, how, were you able to kind of even meet for coffee, or just what was your experience there, and what would you really send as a message to us or to the next generation? Because now I feel there is a next generation after me. To do in order to survive as a survival guide throughout his life?
I think that the best thing I did, the first thing was I did find a support group. So I finally met like 3 other parents who had children with autism, but of course there was almost no similarities. But so that was when I first experienced like feeling like a stranger among friends, you know, like, because our guys are also different. But I think that, you know, because there was no internet, but when, you know, things were harder, but, so I did try for support groups a lot. And then Special Olympics came along when that was 10. And then we really started to have a support group, a very natural support group. This is a place where he could just be who he was and nobody was gonna look twice or say anything. The program in Brookline is really good that way. They're very autism conscious. Or if they're not, they're open to hearing from the parents when they need to. So I think that it's mostly just, you know, finding real people. You know, Facebook's great for that too. But there's really no substitute for going out and hanging out. And actually, like, Beth had me come and speak to Kobach when he was just an infant. And then I started just going to the meetings because it was so good for me too. So yeah, I think that's still the answer.
I also want to say to you that I have 15 and Maisie who's sitting right here, and a 15-year-old, and so much from 13 to 15, I feel like there's been a huge leap in just finding other, I'm just thinking of Gabe, my son, like him finding other people that he has shared interests with and like shared passions, and so the growth, like things will keep changing too.
I made two things.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, things do change.
Questions?
Can I go?
Oh.
So can you tell us about Muse and your experience?
Yeah, Muse. So Muse stands for Music Unity and Social Expansion, and it's a nonprofit that gives musical instruction and performance opportunities for people with developmental disabilities, for adults. So that to me is the special piece, because there's not enough out there for the adults. So Nat stumbled into a Muse concert before they were actually really a nonprofit. It was just an impromptu concert in a friend's living room, but Nat was really into it and started, you know, playing drums or something, because they're so open to this. It's run by these young adults who are, you know, 29, 30, and millennials are so great. They're so open, and you know, I love them at that age. And they just love Nat, and they you know, so they welcomed him into it, and that's been as good or even better than Special Olympics in his life. So now he's got sports and music, and you know, starting at age 26. So I really feel like that's a good message for people to know that there's just still so much growth. You know, and now he doesn't do drums, he sings. And he sings, you know, better than he talks. I mean, it's amazing to hear lyrics coming out of his mouth and hear these words that are, you know, real words. And also to see how charismatic he is and how much he really likes being up there. He likes really being the star. So that's been a great thing for him. And I you know, recommend it to everybody once your loved one gets closer to adulthood to look into them.
Nancy, did you have a question?
Yeah, you had mentioned housing and employment, like briefly, and I was wondering, like, if you could elaborate, like, on what Nat's experience and your experience has been with, like, those areas.
He lived in a group home starting at 17. He moved out to his school's residence, and so he got used to living with other people and away from home. So I see that as a skill. However sad it was for me, it was a skill that he learned. So we kind of knew at that point that we always wanted him to be that independent, because I could see it was good for him. But the trick is finding the right placement, the right group of people. And so his adulthood, that's been a quest again, like school programs were. Now for me, it's like finding him the right housing. He's like on his 5th living arrangement. He's back home after doing shared living, which is just living with a caregiver in an apartment. He's been in group homes, but for various reasons, you know, we've had to change things around. And it's also what I said earlier on, which is that he's in a group home, and then I learn about shared living, which I think is more inclusive and much more real life, and I yank him out of the group home and put him in the shared living. And that's good for a while until it isn't. Then it's back to group home and trying to regroup. So it's trial and error. And I'm trying not to feel bad about that, but I feel like it's bad for him to have to, you know, have changes in his life like this. But when things aren't good enough, they're not good enough. So I have to make these changes. We're hoping for a new kind of shared living now. Two people, a roommate, a friend, someone like one of his Special Olympics friends, live-in caregiver, and a support person. So enough support. That's something you have to really fight for in the adulthood arena. You have to really make sure that you get the funding for the support. That's not fun.
Any other, for now, questions before Susan goes to the book signing table?
Well, I might ask, I was just wondering, over the years, hearing you talk and reading your books and so forth, I noticed that you stumbled across some unintended curb cuts. I think curb cuts is a good example of something where society thought of an accommodation to people with physical challenges. And they don't want to go to every curb and hope somebody will turn up a little bit of the wheelchair up on the curb. So that was an intentional inclusionary thing. You know, as far as been a wonderful thing for people on scooters and pushing perambulators too. But that when you wrote 2 accounts in 2 different, one row, one in tab, I think. One was where you and Nat were at a local market, and he couldn't convey why he was getting so upset. And it finally turned out that he was having a word-finding crisis. He was worried about the right bag
Right.
to hold the groceries or whatever, but couldn't come up with the word and be upset. Whereas another time you were at the second shop, and you looked over and saw him at the automatic checkout section. And somehow that worked because after I read that, I went and tried to say, how patient will this machine be? I don't click with it on the barcode reader and then put it on the belt. And endlessly patient. Whether or not it would wait and wait and wait.
Yeah.
But that was much more inclusive to him. So there was an accidental curve cut.
Right.
And when you talk about the campfire, it sounds as though somehow he's telling you, I know what a campfire is, I like going camping, but there's the campfire, and I know what's involved, and we have to communicate what are we doing now, whatever. Are there other accidental discoveries like that you made, of things where luckily society has come up with some kind of an inclusionary offering that no one unintentionally, but it's there.
Oh, that's a good question. I gotta think about that.
Universal design.
Your books are probably full of them, actually.
I mean, but I'm also trying to think of, you know, even like recent stuff. But I think that the ordering at the counter, you know, I feel like that's a good place for things to start. And, you know, so I guess I mean, one bit of advice I had once gotten was, you know, just look for the friendly looking cashier and you know, just try that. So for me, I guess it comes down to the person we're dealing with not being a jerk. But it's funny how when you mention that, you know, boop, the thing, he really did do that without making it stop. And, you know, not having to call over the person, you know, and I don't know how he did that when I think about it now, because it always stops.
I had the sense that there was no real person there to say, hurry up. If you don't get it,
Right, he was just
Frustrating.
looking for the barcode and, yeah, that autistic focus.
One of the other things you talked about was sort of having your own things. And as a writer, I imagine you have to carve out time and space for your writing. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about your writing process and how you find that time and space to do your writing.
These days, like, so I guess for the last, wow, like 11 years, maybe more, I've been meeting with a friend to write, another writer friend. And it's just parallel play. We just write together and then talk about everything else. It started as a writers group with another writer where we would just talk about the business of writing, like even like what do you wear to a book talk? You know, so that was how I managed to write on a regular basis, and even now, you know, I'll write with her. We recently lost our office, which was Pete's. You know, and yeah, I'm still grieving that, and the whole community in Pete's. What a loss. So we're trying Athens, you know, but it's fine, it's good. But it really, it's just that when I have to write something, I'll just go and write it, you know, like in front of, you know, I can write in front of the TV, and if it's there, it's got to come out. So, you know, it isn't that hard carving out time, I guess. And, you know, I'm not working in an office or something like that where I have to be there 9 to 5, so I do have flexibility in my day. And the dance is the other thing, dancing and bike riding. So I have to have that triangle of stuff going on for me to be happy here, happy right alive.
Could you talk about the diagnosis of your son? You talked to him that he's in the spectrum. Did you share that with him? How did you do that? What age?
I did that. I did that right around the time that I met that young person at the Autistic Self Advocacy Network. So it was pretty recent. It was maybe 10 years ago. That's where we met. And what happened was they invited me to bring Nat to a meeting, and you know, they wanted to meet him and everything, and I wanted to see how it would feel for him. So I brought him, and you know, before that we talked about it. I said, and actually when I if he's seen me on TV or something, or you know, I'll say, I'm talking about you because you do such a good job. You know, like I don't know how to explain it in a way that he'll understand, but when we were going to that meeting, I said, yeah, you know, that your brain thinks differently, and so do these people, and it's called autism. And I said that the word a few times. I don't know if it went anywhere. It's certainly not like a crisis for him because he just doesn't live on that, you know, in that kind of world. He doesn't. I know he doesn't feel. I don't think he feels ashamed of most anything, which is a blessing. So, I mean, I think, like I said before, I think it's important to talk about it. But you also have to really figure out how your child, you have to decide how your own kid is gonna be about it, and you know, you have to take it individually, you know. But that, you know, in our family we talk about it.
Just a little, if you want to talk to some other
I
folks.
will squeeze them in.
Oh, yes.
Sorry. I have a 4-year-old who's going to have to leave because he's expecting me for bedtime, as you understand. Thank you very much for tonight. I have not read your book. I'm going to, and later you can go know. I already can tell I really like your thinking and your style. And I guess as I'm raising my son, and you touched on it a little bit, like I said, he's just 4, he's been in me 2 years, I've done services and all kinds of things. But as you're learning who they are, the things that they're sensitive to now, does that mature Or is it always kind of the essence? Like if light is a sensitivity, because you're the first person I really have been able to meet as an adult, is it always going to stem to the same thing so you can just embrace it now and prepare myself forever? Because I guess things happen and behaviors happen and I'm like, he'll mature this when he learns something and then it will have another obstacle, but maybe it's just always going to be.
I mean, I think it's
Does that make
true,
sense?
the thing you said, he'll learn something, he'll be able to educate himself about what's going on, and you'll maybe find some kind of tool that'll help. Like, you know, if the weather affects him, you know, people have told me try a light box for Nat. You know, the yellow glasses for light sensitivity, things like that you can find. And then, you know, again, I think that talking to him in the way that he'll understand about what he's going through, so that eventually he'll be able to make sense of it. So I know that with Nat, he doesn't like the lights on. Doesn't like lights on at night, or he doesn't like them off. I don't know what it is. But, you know, we still talk to him about it and about when it's dark, the lights go on. And, you know, it bothers him sometimes and not all the time. And other things he has been able to learn. Definitely. I mean, he's just a person, so he's going to learn that this is something that's okay, and I know how to deal with it. You know, even now, he's developed a new behavior of smacking his head. He knows I don't want him to do that.
Right.
So now he, when he sees me and he wants to smack his head, he starts biting his finger instead and runs into a room. Yeah. So he already knows he shouldn't be doing it.
Yep.
I mean, it's a real complicated one. But so, I mean, they're always learning because, you know, they're kids, they're people, and so I really believe in explaining stuff in a way they can understand. So, yeah, like, and I did that with my other children too. Like with Max, I said, "Wow, you know, it looks like you're feeling sad about that. You know, it's." You know, like just kind of talk about what that is and what that feeling is, and, you know. So, because I don't think things last forever like that. And sometimes they reappear. It's like all of us, right? You know, if you're a person with OCD, maybe you have a decade where it's under control. Maybe it comes back. I'm speaking from experience. Yeah, I mean, it's yeah.
Same to you, because you were saying how, I did my best, but like, no one reads one book in this at all ever. You know what I mean? Like, you try things, and so, like, I think you're doing amazing, though. You're a great role model.
Thanks,
Yeah.
but
I agree.
No.
oh, thank you.
Because at home, it's the same thing. They'll tell me this, and this, and it's like, okay. And then I try my little creative things, and you make some connection. And, like, we do a lot of music. He knows when certain songs comes on. That's his schedule. Oh, it's time to brush my teeth. It's time to do that. And so I'm, like, starting to embrace that more all around.
That's great.
But, I mean, it's late.
You don't know when. You don't know what's going to happen with that. The music that just encourage it. Like any of these things, as long as it's socially appropriate, encourage it. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, and I don't know if you're a member of COBAC, but the Brookline. Some people know it's I can write it down, but it's a Yahoo group and Facebook group for Brookline parents with kids on the spectrum. But
Okay.
for any of you who are here, please
She has
join us. Yes. Anyway, thank you for coming. I know it's 8:30 and everyone's probably wants to get up and whatever, but Susan.
Thank you so much.